New Archon story quest unlocked. Okay, good. Sure, some sort of genius invocation cat event. Here we are. Chanson, I guess, of many waters. Boosted drop rate for Endless Solo of Solitude. Furina! Endless Solo of Solitude seems a little redundant, but we've got Charlotte, which we knew about, Collei, and Beidou. So this is kind of like, it's alright overall. Charlotte could be really good. I've heard she was nerfed a couple times, or at least significantly from the beta version, so I don't know if she's going to be that good. She is a team-wide healer, and that's really nice, especially with Furina. Collei is kind of like alright, you already get her for free. The best 4-star on this banner is easily Beidou, especially her C2. Beidou's Constellation 2 is a gigantic increase in damage, especially if you're fighting exactly 2 enemies. Because instead of bouncing twice, it bounces 5 times between them. So that increase is like a 2/3 like damage increase, like a 66% damage increase, which is bigger than most characters' Constellation 6. Like to go from Constellation 5 to 6 is usually like a 30, sometimes 40% increase. Beidou has a bigger increase from her C1 to C2 than most characters have from C5 to C6. And this is like damage dealers and 5 stars included. So Beidou is the best character here, unless for some reason Charlotte becomes a really, really good support. I think she's going to be okay. I don't think she's going to be broken. We haven't really had a good new 4-star since Yao Yao, so my hopes are not really very high. If you do get extra constellations of Collei, it doesn't really solve many of her issues, which is that she's not a very consistent Dendro applicator, and her damage can be okay, but she doesn't apply enough Dendro to really be useful in a lot of different teams where you could just run the Dendro Traveler instead. So overall, this banner is alright. If you're going for this banner, if you're wishing for them, you're definitely wishing for the 5 stars and not for the 4 stars. But having like Baizhu and Beidou together is kind of neat. Charlotte as like an extra healer could be good with Furina teams. If you don't have a character like Jean, Charlotte will almost assuredly be better than someone like Barbara, who will work with Furina, but Barbara has massive energy issues. And since Furina doesn't seem to generate a lot of hydro particles, that's not really going to help Barbara very much. So Charlotte and Furina seem like they'll be a better combination. And then Collei is just kind of whatever. So this banner is like, it's alright. It's actually like, it seems pretty mid overall. We've got one good character, one character you get for free that's kind of eh, and then another character who's probably like okay but not amazing, and then we've got some pretty good 5-star supports here. So let's look at the weapon banner. The Splendor of Tranquil Waters and Jadefall's Splendor. Huh, 2 Splendor weapons. Well, the sword's like, it's alright, it's not too bad. I mean, it's obviously Furina's signature weapon, so it's good for her, but it's not too good for anyone else. The Jadefall Splendor is basically just a 5-star prototype Amber, so the 5 stars on this banner are honestly kind of not great, to be honest. The Furina's signature weapon looks super cool, but it's not really that amazing. And then we've got the Stringless, Sacrificial Sword, looks like Sacrificial Fragments, the Dragonsbane, and the Bell. Well, most of these 4 stars are good. The Bell is awful. The Bell's terrible. It's my favorite looking greatsword in the game, but it's also the worst greatsword ever. The Dragonsbane's a pretty good spear, especially for Reverse Melt Rosaria, EM Raiden, any character that wants a lot of EM. If you have plenty of energy recharge on Xiangling, it can be good for her too, because she is the Spear Archon and she just uses every spear to great effect. Sacrificial Fragments is really good for Sucrose, very good for Nahida, very good for any Catalyst character that really wants a lot of EM and doesn't mind using their skill more than once. That's why it's really nice for Sucrose, because she really gets a lot out of it. Nahida's skill is on a pretty short cooldown, so she doesn't need the passive as much, but if you have C1 Sucrose, being able to use her skill 3 times in a row is really nice. Sacrificial Sword's very useful, obviously really good for a character like Xingqiu, especially when it's refined, and also pretty nice for a character like Kazuha, so you can essentially get his C1 by using a Sacrificial Sword instead of actually going for his C1 and using that many Primo Gems. The Stringless is really good for Venti and for Fischl. It's not quite as good for Fischl anymore that we have the Golden Troop. She gets a lot of damage bonus from the Golden Troop set, so the damage percent that she gets from Stringless isn't quite as valuable if you have a good Golden Troop set for her, but it's still very nice. So overall, the 4 stars on this weapon banner are pretty good. The 5 stars are not really that good. And that's kind of it. It's sort of like the opposite of the character banner, where the 5 stars are really what you're going for if you're wishing on the limited character banner. And with this, you kind of want to not hit the 5 stars unless you're just going for some of the 4 stars and you get them early and it's like, okay, whatever. So, as always, the weapon banners are a trap. I probably would not recommend wishing too much on the weapon banner if you were trying for it. I think the weapon banner, I think for most people this will be maybe 10 or 20 wishes. I would not wish on this weapon banner if you're trying to get a specific weapon, but if you just wanted to increase your roster of good 4-star weapons, 4 out of the 5 weapons are pretty good. It's not a bunch of fab weapons, which is normally what we'd want to see. If this was a Favonius Greatsword, it would be a lot better, but it's not a terrible weapon banner in terms of 4 stars. 5 stars are just like, you know, they're okay. I wouldn't use too many wishes if you ever decide to go for this. Don't try to go for a specific 4-star weapon ever on a weapon banner, because you have a very low chance of getting it. And for the character banner, like, if you're wishing on this, you're wishing for the 5 stars. So overall, these are, like, they're alright. I think if you're going for Furina, should you wish on this weapon banner? I don't think so. The Ferryman of Floufsand is still a pretty good sword for her. I don't think you need her signature weapon, and with the chance of getting either the Jadefall Splendor or a potential other weapon that might not be very good, I would just skip this weapon banner, because it's likely that Furina will have a rerun in 3 to 4 patches. So maybe 4.5, 4.6, Furina will have her rerun, and maybe she'll have a better weapon banner there that's not the Jadefall Splendor. So if you were planning to go for Furina and her weapon, I don't think I would recommend wishing on the weapon banner right now. I think I'd actually wait, see if you want a signature weapon on Furina after you get her, and then wishing later if you plan to do that.